Let me make this smaller so I can see all. Let me do this one. There we go. Excuse me. Middle childhood cognitive development. Really, really excited because again, maybe prior to this, when we were talking about younger children, you didn't really understand their, remember we talked about Piaget. Piaget is the cognitive theorist that we kind of wrap all our stuff around. Piaget in the last unit was talking about how pre-organized or pre-operational students are. And now we get to talk about getting super organized. And I don't mean your space, but although we talked about that at the beginning of class with our Myers-Briggs, if you're a J, doesn't mean you're a judgmental person. It means you like your life a certain way, like your space a certain way. If you're a P, not so much. If you're close to the middle, it can go kind of clean, kind of messy, and goes in waves. That's cool. But this cognitive development starts here, not starts here, but builds on what's been coming. So again, the rhetorical question section says, does cognition improve naturally, or is teaching crucial, right? You have to be taught for your brain to learn, or does your brain just learn naturally? Spoiler alert. Why do children use slang, curse words, and bad grammar? Hilarious. We'll talk about that. I remember 6th grade was when everyone started dropping that F-bomb. 1st grade was the finger. This went around the school. Like they had to all these kids were trying on the finger, and then they had to write like impact statements or thinking sheets on it. It was so funny. And I could just tell who was in love with it, because I does that kid have an older brother? There we are. So it's right, hilarious. Number 3, what type of school is best during middle childhood? Now that's a really interesting question right now, because a lot of parents were like, well, I'm not going to deal with this thing at school. I'm pulling them out of school and trying to homeschool. Now here's the deal. What's best for a kid is great, but what's best for a family is better. It's hard. It's really hard to say, I need to put this kid's education first while my family is sinking. Yes and no. If there's a way to do both at the same time, that's what we're going to go for. So now, again, we're building on the theory here. Piaget he noticed that kids around this age start clicking into the rules. So now you're going to start seeing this thing called concrete operational thought. So think of it as in the concrete in the blacktop for elementary school. So as you get older, concrete is the recess area, right? When kids are younger, they're illogical. So just remember there's pre-operational and then concrete operational thought. The one after is formal. So we can think of a bow tie for formal and proms and stuff as we get into high school. So with this one is ability to reason logically about direct experiences and perceptions. So now you're going to start to see kids who are learning science, right? And the difference between, remember the genus, phylum, species, and all that business, categorizing, rules, math rules. You guys remember, again, we talked about, so math rules. If you do math in the wrong order, you're wrong. You can't, it doesn't work that way. So PEMDAS, right? Parentheticals, exponents, multiplication, division, adding, subtracting. You have to do it in that order, or else you're going to get the wrong answer. So this is when kids learn that. When did you guys learn PEMDAS? Elementary school, upper, 6th grade, junior high school?
I'd say 5th grade.
Yes. What am I saying? You guys, now guess what? Every school has a motto. Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, yes, you were doing it earlier, but now you get it. Why am I seeing this pledge? Why is, we did California history. Now we're working into American history, world history, right? We start to build on the knowledge, the developmental appropriate knowledge that kids can process, right? And so again, we learn about the preamble to the Constitution, and then they start learning all these different things right to peaceful assembly, right to bear arms, right to vote, all this business. Rules. It's going to be blacktop rules and library rules and homework rules, and it gets a little bit rigid. So remember when the kids were little, they were kind of illogical. Now their brain is getting so strong, trying to get a little bit rigid, about the rules. So again, I said to my nephew, he's building some Legos. I was like, stupendous job, young squire. You said stupid. Or the kids won't Peyton was like, cougars are kind, caring, responsible, and give 100% effort 100% of the times. And then break the rules right in front of you, right when he said it. So again, when you have a kid with a different brain, you may be pre-operational and concrete operational at the same time. Even the principal would say, but he just told me the rules and he just told me the motto of the school. And then he went and he just broke it. Yeah, Piaget, remember, didn't get the kids with the different minds and different bodies. He got these guys. He got typically developed kids. So you guys remember spelling bees in elementary school? I remember spelling bees, and my best friend got out on the word banana. I just misspelled it. Right, but now it's this kid about, you can tell who's getting really good grades, and kids start comparing grades now. You can tell who the kids are academically really good. Like for example, in one of his previous elementary schools, I had a robotics club. The number one rule is that every kid gets equal input. And I was like, well, he's out. He ain't doing that, because he's gonna like literally strong arm y'all's because he's got these great ideas. Whether or not they are the best ideas, he can't really, again, alternative minds. And so it's all about rules. What about rules of language? You know, your sentences, right? Capital beginning, punctuation at the end, spelling has to be correct. We learn about homonyms, antonyms. We learn about pairing, like all this different stuff. We even when you start reading literature, like maybe, oh, I don't know, they were reading the one and only Ivan. And so they start to get into these rules. Okay, well, this is the rules of that, and this is the rules of that. And they will tell the adults if they broke the rules too. They get hyper vigilant and a little bit rigid on it. It's kind of cute. So this horizontal décalage, it's a French term. I do not test on it, but it just means that you don't learn the really hard stuff before the easy stuff. You have to learn things in a sequence, right? We learn adding and subtracting before we learn fractions, or first we do what? Adding and subtracting, then multiplication, then 2-digit multiplication and 3-digit multiplication. Then we do division. Then we do fractions, right? We have to understand what a whole number is before you can start dividing it up into fractions. So horizontal décalage just means that there's this horizon, or this journey of when we keep adding more things on, and we do it age appropriate, right? And so again, some kids get it easier, some kids don't. So again, here I talked about this classification. Do you guys remember this? In science, it was an animal, vegetable, mineral, right? Or this type of rock does this, like hold on, let me show you rocks. Like, so I have some rocks here, hold on. And so we would learn about this type of rock, you know, just like this is an igneous or metamorphic rock. And then we would learn about this type of rock and how they were similar and how they were different, and how one was classified this way. Or a dog, how a wolf is a dog and your dog at home is a dog. And so kids are starting to learn these rules of biology, right? Or then you started learning science, like the cell. Everything has a cell, but what's in a cell? And so everything, right? Or mammals have live births, and reptiles have egg births, you know, things like that. So learning these rules. And then what about I before E, except after C? Vowels are A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y, right? You have to know the rules in order to be able to manipulate the rules. So later we'll start to see what manipulating the rules looks like. And I don't mean that in a bad way. But as you get older and you start learning about chemistry, so like Peyton tells me that sound travels faster through helium. Did you know that? That's a big deal in this age. Did you know they even put that in Frozen 2 movie where like Olaf is like, did you know, like super rando facts, Peyton, the other day. Did you know sound travels faster through helium? And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Helium's lighter than air, so that makes sense that the sound waves would move faster through it. He's like, oh, how did you know that, Mom? You certainly haven't heard the rule yet that says your mom is going to rule no matter what. You won't get it, but that still is in play even though you don't get it. I was like, well, yeah, I was a good student. I still can't remember this stuff. Or he'll tell me stuff about like, oh, I don't know, the computer. I'm like, really? I do that every day. He said something about Zoom, and I was like, got it. How do you got it? How do you know? Again, alternative minds kind of are in an alternative place. Okay, so this hierarchy of categories, again, how about seriation? Remember when we were little, we learned about like there's snow falls, and then there's a bunch of snow, and then we can build a snowman, and then the sun comes out and the snowman melts. So we learned sequencing as a small child, but that's a simple sequence. Now, when we say there's snow, how does snow form? Under which circumstances does snow form? And what if it's too heavy or too wet? Or every single snowflake is different. How does that work? Those are crystalline structures. We start to get more in depth into that really easy sequence of seriation. So now when the snow falls, how come it falls like this? And how come it stays? And how come you can clump it? How come you can't clump it? And then when the sun comes out, it turns it to, goes from a solid to a liquid, and then even to a gas, where we start learning about things happen in sequence, and it gets more sophisticated, which is really, really cool. But yeah, look at this. By age of 8, most children can classify. What is that, 3rd grade? 4th grade? 3rd grade? Yeah. Classify. Kids can say, well, this goes in that category, this goes in that category, this goes in that. This is just the brain building on itself. So again, oh, let's see here. Mackenzie's here. Yay. And then, so then we talk about, remember the first slide talked about the role of instruction. I want to make this a little bit bigger. The role of instruction. Does our brain grow without instruction? Well, yes, right? Remember, our brain is independently structured. We have things that our brain can learn just by being yourself. If you were alone at the age of 8 on a deserted island, would you still learn? Yes. Would you learn as much? No, right? Sometimes you have to have that older person, or doesn't even mean older person. Somebody, Vygotsky used the term mentor or leader. When you have somebody who's older or more experienced in a situation and shows you. So think about the last time you were on campus, or the fact that you had to learn a new campus, or even if you were at a different college and then you came to this college, you had to figure out where the admissions records was, or where the parking pass thing was, or like you had to figure things out. And sometimes you reach out and ask for something, right? You ask somebody, hey, you guys know where the library is? We're like, oh yeah, just go down this walkway and turn over there, blah. So you have somebody who's more knowledgeable helping you, right? You could have found it on your own, but it's more efficient. You don't waste as much time, right? But Vygotsky really believed that educators is everywhere, but when you have that right support, you can learn better, you can learn faster, and you can learn more. And that's kind of where culturally, our culture, our American culture, our dominant culture, and most cultures don't want you to learn less. They want you to learn more. Now, our American culture is more like be number one, go super fast, collect as much information, like be the smart, be the best, be the smartest, be number one. We'll talk more about that in 110 when you guys can take that with me next semester. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I am teaching that one. I think it's 100% online, but I might do it blended so I can still have lectures, because my classes that are 100% online are just, they're doing okay, but you guys are my only class, you know, my 2 sections of 107, you guys are my only class that get my lectures live. And I think it makes a difference. And so come take 110 with me next semester. Well, I'll lecture once a week. I'll lecture once a chapter. There's only 12 chapters at 110 instead of 16. Okay, so Vygotsky is the one who, remember, he invented the zone of proximal development. It's really that zone of that somebody is helping you. There's a structure in there. We use the term scaffolding. We create a zone. We create a moment. We created the opportunity for a child to learn, or even somebody, not a child, somebody who's less versed in that particular culture. Again, think of people who are brand new to our country and just have to learn how to, you know, I'll give an example that I think I shared with Nina earlier. I travel to, like, I have family in like the Wisconsin, Chicago area, and we'll travel there every couple of years. I particularly here in California don't ever really use a bus. It's not that big of a deal, but just the skill to learn how to use a bus schedule. I know it's all on an app now, but like be able to read a chart and figure out which side is north, south, east, west, which side is going, what's the time, when is it coming, what's it leaving. There's a thing there that if I was to go to Japan right now, public transit is like everything. So I'd have to learn that, but what if I didn't know the language? Do they have everything written in English? I don't think so. So again, having somebody there to guide you, right? It's great. So again, we use the term apprentice for a child, somebody who's new, but it could be even somebody older than you. So have you ever had to I use this example. Ever have to help your mom or your grandma or your dad or granddad about their own cell phone? They're older than you. They're just not wiser than you when it comes to that particular device. And so if you come in there and say, oh, it's easy, all I have to do is do this and then do that and then do this. And you're creating like this, and then you say, okay, well, you try it on your own. It's almost like training wheels for a bike, right? You're providing that opportunity, that scaffolding for that apprentice while you are the master, even though you're younger and they're older. So language is obviously an integral mediator. If you don't speak the same language, how do you support somebody? Yeah, it's interesting. So again, there's cultural variations because remember, Vygotsky is a cultural theorist. He's sociocultural theorist. He believed that society and culture was very dependent on certain things. And this picture of these kids, this is kids in India who spend their, they said during the daytime, they sleep, but at night, they're tour guides or like devotees or people coming to this temple or whatever. And just so you know, it's hard to explain, but you know, India can be very hot at times. But this white thing that they're sleeping on is marble, and marble's cold. So culturally, when I ask people typically, why are they on that concrete like that, or why are they on the floor like that? Some people don't, oh, well, they're sleeping. But why on the white parts instead of the gray parts? A lot of us aren't really around marble enough to know that there is a temperature variance in marble. So culturally, and look at, nobody's bugging these kids. There's adults around going, oh, these kids are sleeping on the ground right now. They don't have shoes on. That one doesn't have a shirt on. And everyone's like, yeah, that's cool. They're sleeping. They worked all night. Right? And then this right here talks about this Varanasi kids. They have this, over time, they've developed this sense of direction, their spatial orientation, their map. They can walk trails and they can do maps in the dark. So it's really kind of interesting. And it has a lot to do with that particular culture. So maybe in our culture, we teach our kids to care for their younger siblings. Maybe in our culture, we teach our kids to be very technologically sound at a very young age. So again, cultures are different in what we find is important to learn and how we teach it and how we support it. So again, every culture is a little bit different, but that scaffolding and that zone of proximal development exists everywhere. Again, Russian people and Russian children, sub-Saharan Africa and their children. Those things happen. You don't just expect a child to learn stuff. Does a child learn how to tie their shoes on their own just after they see you do it once? No, right? And what happens if you tie a shoe for a child forever and you don't allow them to learn? I just tell people, the more you like to tie a shoe, keep tying it. If you don't like tying a shoe, teach them. And trust me, again, children with alternative minds and alternative bodies and whatnot, my kid tied his shoe on his own successfully at the age of 11. I was like, yes. He did it a different way and it kind of worked and it kind of fell out a lot. But by the age of 11, he got it. And I was like, obviously, you want them to get that earlier, but everyone's on a journey. Especially.
I think when I was in kindergarten, one of my assignments was I had to know how to tie my shoes.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you this. I think by the age of 5 is kind of the developmentally appropriate goal, right? But a lot of kids are still in diapers at 4. Like 3 out of a diaper till 4 is okay. And there's this thing where some kids, I guarantee maybe you got the tie the shoe part, but a lot of kids didn't. Right. And so, but at the same time, like we looked at it like, socially and emotionally, he had more to learn, meaning like, I can get Velcro shoes, I can get slip-on shoes, like, right? There's solutions to those problems, right?
Yeah.
And now that he's older, it's not cool to have Velcro shoes or slip-on shoes. Maybe slip-ons are okay, but he's got to have the Vans and whatnot. And so it was kind of like, we figured shoe tying would come, but the social, emotional, or the social skills had to come in first. So again, it's really interesting. What about kids like this? Do they even own shoes? I don't see shoes on the side of the marble. Maybe they're just taking it off to be respectful of the marble. There may be a cultural imperative there. I don't know. Do they even own shoes? I don't know. I don't know. But again, is it a problem in that culture? So we have down the street, like some kids, a family, and they're Native American or part Native American. And for them, their like shoes are completely optional. And they'll come in our house and they'll just be running around in their shoes, and which is not a problem. I'm not opposed to that, but we're more the like have the shoes on and then kick them off at the door kind of situation. But they're like running down the blacktop or the hot pavement, no shoes. And I'm like, huh? So cultural differences doesn't mean they're wrong. It's just that so I even tell those kids when they come, hey, I don't care about the shoes off, just as long as your feet aren't like muddy, dirty, right? Right, good. So yeah, there's cultural differences in everything, but the theory is the same. The structure is the same. The opportunity, the teaching opportunities are the same. So when we talk about cognition, Vygotsky is the cultural piece. Piaget is the one about those 4 stages that build on each other, but there's another way of looking at cognition. And before we had talked about information processing before, but now it really shows up. So remember, as a reminder, information processing is more like a computer. It's input, storage, retrieval, right? So just like you downloading an app, downloading a driver, things like that. Think about the internet as like when you open the internet and you have tabs, those are kind of like, the internet's almost like temporary, right? It's in your computer, but it's temporary. I mean, yes, we have cookies that connect our computer to that particular website, which is fine. But once you click off the internet, it's no longer on your computer, right? Versus if you download an app. So I have like PowerPoint downloaded on my computer. That is a part of the memory of the computer, right? So when kids are learning, there's things that they download and they retain, and then there's things that they just temporarily go and get. So again, when we think of the human brain like a computer, we are constantly getting input right now. Even me going like this, I'm moving air in front of my face and I can feel the air. That is input. It's not that I need to remember that. It's not that I need to really know or focus on that, because when I was little and I was in sensory motor, I was new to that. That was new to me, and my brain would explode when I was learning when I was feeling new things or sensing new things. Now we basically feel stuff sensory wise. Like I said earlier, it was a little bit cold. I actually have real jeans on. We now know how to process some sensory input, right? Now that we've experienced it for so many years. As a child, it was new, and then it's not new anymore. And so most of the sensory stuff, if your sensory processing is normally developed, normal sensory input is kind of ignored for the most part. Well, or we have a solution to it. Oh, it's cold, I should get a sweater. Right? Or my feet are hot, let's put on sandals. Or my feet are cold, let's get some socks, right? So we know we have a sensory moment, and then we know how to fix it. Either we stay with that, or that feels good, I'm going to keep doing that. Or, oh, I don't like that, so I'm going to stop or change it or solve it, right? So that experience builds over time, right? Now, when we are getting input as a new information, like what you guys are maybe getting right now, this is new information. You guys are required to learn it and recall it for the test, right? Now, I allow you guys to use your book, and you have 2 times to do it, whatever, that's fine. So it's not like you have to memorize it. Do you guys remember doing flashcards? Who still does flashcards? It's fine, other classes. When did you start using flashcards? I'm gonna go back.
I'd say like 1st grade, 2nd grade, really early elementary for sure. They were bigger and the less detailed, but it was like the super bulky writing, and it was like a very, very brief, detailed explanation.
Yes.
Not a lot of info.
Our first flashcards sometimes show up as we're trying to get sight words in. Just like I said, when you have a sensory input and you really don't care, you kind of ignore it. Sight words have to be built. So it was like the, and, his, hers, mine, yours, ours, dog, cat, eat, run, like real basic sight words, right? And so big flashcards, right? And then you get a little bit more sophisticated. So you're basically repeating, you're doing rote learning. You're just by exposure. I want to learn, if I see this 100 times, I'll remember it, right? And especially if you guys are visual learners, some kids actually, when they're super young, memorize the shapes of the words, or TH, that like the is 2 tall letters and a short letter, right? Some kids visually memorize it that way. Some kids learn it because that's the letters in the word. Different people learn different ways, but the input that you're doing, the input that you're doing is to help for storage, for memory, right? Now, again, we have those different types of memory, and we'll talk about this in a second, but how you recall those things. Like, so for example, if I said to you, like right now, who, just something we talked about today, who invented the ZPD? You guys got it, right? We just talked about it on the last slide. So Vygotsky, right? So maybe your brain's not that fast, but like, because you're tired or whatnot. But you guys, you were just exposed to it. It's still on the surface memory. You guys can recall it, no problem. If I said to you, who was your first grade teacher? You guys are like, takes a second, right? Now, by the way, your eyes move in conjunction to retrieval. What was your first pet's name? In the first grade, who was your best friend's name? What was his or her favorite color? Right, so now you're starting to dig a little bit more, right? You're starting to, it takes a minute. You see where my eyes are going? My eyes are going up. Eyes are going up and to the left. Those eyes correspond to memory retrieval, which is really cool. Versus if I said, what's 144 divided by 12? You guys are all, yuck. Right? Let me see if I can get this in. I got somebody in chat. Yay! Nina's like, 12. Got it. Yeah. Right. So here's the thing. We have parts of our brain. Sorry, I'm moving this over. Moving this back. Parts of our brain hold different parts of information, right? Oh, by the way, it's not that we have to remember to breathe, but parts of our brain have that in there too. It's in the middle part, our human keep going parts, right? Now, again, we also analyze stuff. Now, if I said compare Vygotsky's theories on cognition and Piaget's theories on cognition, yes, we can analyze. In my intro class, we don't do a whole lot of analysis, but when we start going up in your classes get more difficult, right? That's Bloom's taxonomy, right? We start to, instead of just doing flashcards, we start to say, how does this apply? And then how do we analyze, and how do we compare and contrast? And then how do we create our own? So there's a lot of things to be doing in terms of memory input, processing, and output. In this class, I just kind of really do a lot of processing, but not a lot of analyzing. And then expressing. Are you able to describe the ZPD to somebody else? If you can verbally describe a concept in your book, if you're struggling with a concept, if we talked about, we're going to talk about memory in a second. If you were struggling about memory, the concept of memory and the different types of memory, if you explained it to a parent or a younger sibling or a friend who wasn't taking the class, if you can express it, then you've processed it and you understand it on a deeper level. So when you teach something to somebody, you know it better versus just reading it. I don't know about you. I can read an entire page of a book and not even know exactly what I was like. Oh, start over. I don't even know what I just read. Right? But when you explain it to somebody, you're essentially teaching it to them. And then it means that you've learned it on a deeper level to where you can explain it and teach it. So again, expressing your conclusions, or let's say you're talking to somebody and you're trying to describe something to them and they don't understand you. You have to like rephrase it or water it down, just like I'm doing right now. I'm giving you 2 different examples of expression, of memory expression or item expression. You kind of tweak it to that person's other perception and how they understand the world. I know a lot of times I use car analogies. My boys are like super into cars. So I'll use a car analogy, right? Because some people, don't understand it if I say it Oh, about houseplants. If I use the analogy about houseplants, like, I don't have a houseplant. What is she talking about? Maybe I'll use a car analogy, or maybe I'll use like a shopping analogy or something like that. Or something else, right? So it's different people are going to come to the information in different ways. So if you can express that information differently for a different crowd, that means you got it. You got it going on. Okay. So information processing, these three things, I think on this last exam, for this in 2 weeks, after next week, there's an exam. I think the essay for that exam is, now that you've learned about these three theorists, like, identify them and then compare and contrast. Yeah. So Vygotsky, Piaget, and information processing. So make sure this is easy. What are those three things? What do they have in common? What do they have different? Yeah, super easy. So you guys are getting it. It's not hard. It's not the first time. I know this is not the first time you've heard this stuff. Sorry, I'm going back. Now, again, evidence of theory's usefulness. Again, remember we talked about theories are only good when you can replicate them. So again, when you actually measure brains, you can see growth. When kids are taught, you can see growth, which is nice, meaning like you can see more dense parts of the brain, more neurons develop, things like that. Also, central processing hubs built over time. There's little parts of your brain, especially this big part up here, that start to like centralize, and they'll be like, okay, well, this is where we store the memory for American history, or history in general, or geography. I remember that was a big thing in like 6th grade, was geography, right? We knew what mountains and valleys were, but like, what are this mountain range called, right? Things like that, right? Now, I'm going to use the dreaded word math. Siegler was an actual researcher just on math knowledge acquisition, which is really cool, because I think there's a lot there. I think a lot of people have math abuse, honestly. Do you guys remember your math teachers around this time? 4th grade math, wasn't that long division, fractions, percentages, decimals? Blarg, right? And if you have a teacher at that time who told you in a million, maybe not in a million ways, but enough that you suck at math, you're never going to be good at math, blah, blah, blah. I've heard some pretty horrific stories that obviously people carry forward to it, right? And so if you're an adult who says, I'm terrible at math, maybe in last chapter we talked about dyscalculia, that could be you, or you are processing math trauma because somebody told you you're horrible at math, right? But we build our math skills on purpose. And again, when you're learning something new and somebody's telling you you're horrible at it, it's not going to help you retain or actually want to learn new stuff. So same thing with math. I'm not saying be super like snowflake gentle with math, but there's a point where just some nice words of encouragement help, versus like, you're dumb, you're never going to do that, you're never going to amount to anything because you're never going to understand math. Ugh. I guarantee you, if I had you guys all raise your hands, about half of you would say I had a horrible math teacher and I'm nervous about math. About half people, which is sad, because a lot of people go, well, I'm going to come work with preschool kids where I won't ever have to do math. Well, yeah, you'll have to do a little bit of math, just not the hard stuff, right? Just not the hard stuff. And again, cultural influence of practice specifics. That's a nice way of saying, if you have somebody helping you with math, if you have a math tutor, if your parents are okay with math. I mean, how many times across America every night there's parents trying to help kids with math, and it's the new math or it's Common Core math, and the parents don't get it because we weren't taught that way. That's been happening for generations, by the way, generations. We didn't learn it that way. My parents said it, my grandparents said it, my kids are going to say it to their kids. Fine, I get it, right? But it's the approach, right? Is it that I'm mad that your math is different? Is it, I hate this, I was bad at it, and now I'm bad at it with you? Like, trust me, there's a lot there. So again, be gentle with the math learning. Be gentle with the math learning, even with yourselves. So this is page 345. Sensory memory, working memory, and long-term memory. Easy. Sensory memory is right here, right now. Sensory memory, right? Split second. If I said memorize the following sequence of words: red ball, lightning bolt. Could you recall that? Yes, you could. Red ball, lightning bolt. No big deal, right? Now, sometimes you'll need that for like a code, something really fast that you need it for. Do you need to remember that 10 years from now? Is what I just said no, none of that needs to be remembered at all. It just was like, I came in and it's right, came out. Now, working memory is short-term memory. It's almost like I need to remember, I'm going to the grocery store. What do I need to remember? Yeah, short-term memory. Or if I say Wednesday's a holiday, like there's no school, you might have to like kind of plug that in for working memory between today and tomorrow, right? That's really short. It's not that big of a deal. And then long-term memory stuff that you actually have to put in and pull out. Like I said to you, what was your first pet's name? You know, was this the street name you lived on when you were born? Things like that. So some of those things are tucked way back, and the retrieval takes a second. Again, that's where those, you know, me and my husband had that conversation the other day. He's like, do you remember you used to have a Palm Pilot? I was like, I never had a Palm Pilot. That was your first wife. And he goes, oh yeah, that was her. I was like, right. So I was like, thanks for that long-term memory, little mush, right? But here's the deal. How important is it? Not very important. So again, long-term memory is sometimes just tucked away just for you to pull it out. Sometimes it pulls out not so great. But again, if you've seen the Inside Out movie, Disney Inside Out movie, if you haven't seen it, I would recommend watching it. They actually use memory recall theory. I guarantee you, if I made you guys watch it, in fact, do it as extra credit. Watch it and pick out the course terms in there. I guarantee you there's Piaget terms in there. There's emotional terms in there, like Erickson. There's memory terms in there. There's developmental theory in there, 100%. And by the way, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, it really has like a panel of like experts in here, right? And everybody's brain has a panel of experts, and they're really emotional. There's joy and sadness and anger and fear, and in teenager years, like annoyed. So great, right? But then they sneak peek into the dad's brain and the mom's brain, same thing. They have the anger, fears, happy, sadness, joy, and annoyance. They're all in there. Same with the cat, same with the dog. But the main character, Riley, all her little panel of experts, they're mixed gender. So Riley is fluid. Right? Where the mom has all the moms, and the dad has all the dads, and the cats have all the cats, and the dogs have all the dogs. Riley's got boys and girls up in there. So she's a little bit more gender fluid, which is kind of cool. That was like Disney's little nod to that, right? So it'll talk about memories that get stored. They have memories that get dumped. They have memories that have to like shuffle from working memory all the way to long-term memory. And then they start to, so like she was losing her memory of her favorite, like, let's say Steffi when she was a kid. She had to choose which memories were going to get saved and which memories weren't, or whatever. And again, they even joke around about the ones that you don't want to remember. The things that the catchy tune or the commercial or something that's in your mind. You're like, I'm telling you, I can like recite all the words to like stupid commercials from when I was a kid. Why do I need that in there? I don't know. But again, our brain is a magical mystery tour, and it does lots of fun things, but make sure that you know sensory working and long-term memory. Again, memory gets better, right? When you're in first grade, you don't remember as long-term. Again, you've only been on the planet for that many years, but when you're in the 6th grade, now you're like 10 or 11, and you have more things to remember, right? And again, steadily remember things, right? Long-term memory capacity, virtually limitless by the end of middle childhood. Long-term memory capacity, virtually limitless by the end of middle childhood. So by the age of 12. Long-term memory capacity is virtually limitless. Isn't that crazy? So I tell people that when 12-year-olds are just getting ready to be know-it-all 13-year-olds, because I think they know it all. It's hilarious. Memory storage expands over childhood, but retrieval is more important. So what if you remember it, but what if you can't retrieve it? What if you actually had a head injury and your memory's not that great and you don't remember PEMDAS? It's going to mess up every single math equation. And as the prefrontal cortex matures, children are better able to use these strategies. What about mnemonic devices or graphic organizers? Peyton still uses the chicken foot to organize his paragraphs. He still has all kinds of different graphic organizers that help. But this up here tells us to help in certain order, right? This tells us that we have, I'm just looking for my phone, what time it is. Let's see. Wait, how are we doing on time check? It says an hour. Hold on, let me double check down here. Hold on. There we go, 11:17. Perfect. 20 minutes. Okay, so again, our memory keeps getting better as we go. So somebody do this. Let me do this. I have 20 minutes. I'm gonna set a timer. Timer cubes. I got these from Bed Bath & Beyond, but they're from Sharper Image. They're the best. So if I want 20 minutes, just go straight up. This right there, they're so cool. Advances in memory. This is really cool. This, again, I've been talking to you about how things happen when you're smaller versus when you get older. And just remember that 12-year-old is right on the edge of knowing everything, and it's not wrong. It's really not wrong. The more you put in, the more they can actually know, but retrieval is key, right? So under 2 years, they just are really centric, meaning it's just the stuff that has to do with them, right? So if you went to the park, you could have a 2-year-old, you could say at the end of the day, what did you guys do today? And the child could say, we went to park. We went to park. I like the park. Awesome. They can remember things about that. Or I fell down and go, boom, I hurt my elbow. Like, they'll tell you things that happened about that, right? 2 to 5 years, they're going to say words like, remember, mommy, we went to the store. They'll start to use more words than they actually are excited about, remembering things. They're not as organized, but they're getting there, right? They remember things by rote. If you can say, how do you spell your name? You know, Amanda, Amanda, like, they'll get it, right? They don't want exactly know what all those things mean, but they'll learn it by rote, their address or mommy's phone number, things like that. And between 5 and 7 years, now we're talking about K1, 2, 3, maybe K1, 2, maybe. They know that they have to remember things, but remember, you would like pin it to their shirts. And because you're not sure if they can remember, hey, remember to tell your mom to blah, blah, blah. No, that needs to be a note home, right? But repeating helps around those ages. Repeating helps. Same thing with memorizing spelling words. Again, we talked about spelling bee, but around 1st grade, 2nd grade, you guys were starting to spell words, and you had to then have a spelling test at the end of the week. Big time. It's all about memorization. It's all about exposure. Keep repeating. Now 7 and 9, now we're talking about 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. Children can learn their strategies. What about, I said mnemonic devices. What mnemonic device do you guys remember? You guys remember what that is? It's taking the first letter from each thing. So I'll give you an example. We don't use it in here. Homes. If I needed to remember all of the Great Lakes, remember geography? The Great Lakes in North America. Know what I'm talking about, right? Homes. HOMES. Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. Right? So mnemonic devices. What do you guys remember? What mnemonic device?
Does like never eat soggy waffles count? That was like north, east, southwest.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That was one.
Yeah.
Which soggy waffles are actually kind of good, so I don't even know.
Girl, if we're talking soggy with butter, it's not terrible, right? Or syrup, not terrible. What else? What other mnemonic devices did you guys remember from that time?
Wasn't it like, well, okay, it was kind of the same thing as what you just said, but it was like never enter Santa's workshop. That was another one.
Yeah, same thing. She got north, south, east, west, never enter Santa's workshop. I love it. 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 Oh, by the way, I just got like a new padlock like this. This one's like letters, right? But I just got one for our outside shed that has no numbers on it. You just go, it just goes north, south, east, or west. And you can plug it, you can do it any single way you want. So I was telling my husband, I was like, WNES, one-ness, west, north, east, south, right? And he was like, oh, okay, right? So yeah, so, and by the way, these things are brilliant, by the way. I was like, I did it. I'm doing like escape room stuff for the kid. He's earning escape room stuff. And so that was part of it. Getting different locks. He's got to find out the code for this one by getting other codes and things like that. So, so what else? Mnemonic devices. Who remembers Roy G. Biv?
The color spectrum, right?
Yep, the
Yeah.
color of the rainbows: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Roy G. Biv. I don't know about you guys, but when it held here on Saturday, and then there was like a double rainbow after, it was brilliant. Yeah, I got that one. There's other ones too. It was like memorizing the letters in like music class. Every good boy deserves fudge, e.g. B, D, F, something like that. In a scale, something like that. I remember those things. And so any sort of thing that helps you, right? Mnemonic devices, they kind of showed up at this time right here. So 7 to 9 years, children, you learn new strategies. All these mnemonic devices started to show up around them, like visual clues. Again, how a word looks, that doesn't look right as I spell it, right? Rhyming letters, like visual spatial sketch pad. If you can start seeing things in your brain's eye, your mind's eye, or the whiteboard in your brain, that's visual. Your brain can't come up with these things unless your brain is growing, right? So as your brain grows, you can be like, oh yeah, I don't know about you, but like sometimes I can see things like written on a board and I'm like, that isn't right. That doesn't look right. Oh, I think this is it, right? Or I can do the math in my head, that kind of like on a board. I can be like, oh, okay, yeah. It takes a minute, but not until 7 to 9 years does that show up, right? But children benefit from organizing things to be remembered. So again, when you organize it, you can remember it. So getting your backpack ready, getting like things ready, doing certain things in a certain sequence, patterns, habits, yeah, they start to form here. It's really cool. Then 9 to 11 years, memory becomes more adaptive and strategic. So if you can memorize something or remember something over here and then carry it over here to be more strategic or to adapt things. Let's say you're in a sports game and you realize, well, that kid is a lefty, or that kid's a really good hitter, or that kid is not a really good player, right? You could start to adapt memory strategies, like who's let's say who's better at the subject in your class, right? Kids start to get more competitive and they'll be like, well, I know that Marcus is really good at math, but he's not really good at fractions. So I think I might win. I might get a better score on this quiz or whatever. So they get more strategic and more adaptive. They're learning better. They're learning more efficiently. They're learning their way. So again, this is why I love this chapter, this unit. You guys are starting to remember these things that you did then, and you're still using it now. There's not a whole lot in this class that requires that, but I know other classes in college still require flashcards. And so again, there's more sophisticated skills as kids get more sophisticated in their brains. They can organize material themselves. You'll start to see here around 9 to 11 kids who have a certain way of doing things, certain way of taking notes, certain way of organizing their stuff. And then, by the way, you'll start to see the kids. This is where the ADHD shows up, is right around here. You have to have symptoms before the age of 12, but you'll start to see it here. And so the one kid with the messy desk, oh yeah. Again, and they organize material, things that are coming into their brain and things into their universe, developing their own memory aids. So really cool. So some kids will tell you, I can't use that mnemonic device. It doesn't make sense to me. I made it my own. Even better, even better. Cool. Yeah, you guys starting to remember? You guys starting to remember what it was like? Yeah. So again, knowledge is based on, like, you can collect a bunch of knowledge, but if you're not interested in it, you're not going to remember it, right? So let's say you want to be a doctor, so you're taking an anatomy class. Well, yeah, you're going to remember that stuff because it's interesting to you. If you're taking an anatomy class because you had to get your science out of the way and that was the only one that fit into your schedule, you might be like, right? But again, knowledge is influenced on experience. If it's a highly preferred activity, a highly preferred topic. So if you're a child development major, this stuff is like easy, super easy. It's preferred, you like it, you'll remember it, it makes sense to you, right? This current opportunity, again, how information is presented, if it's just like, here, read this book. And trust me, I used to teach the child abuse class, and the book was good, but there was like zero pictures in it. So it was a topic on child abuse, which even if people said, I want to work with kids and I am going to be a mandated reporter and I need to learn this stuff, I have to learn it. Nobody prefers the topic of child abuse. Let me get this straight. Last time I taught it was a 7 p.m. class, 7 to 10 p.m. and a book with no pictures in it. And we're talking about child abuse. So yeah, even your professor cries in that class. It's brilliant. And so it was all I could do to make PowerPoints and this whole song and dance, pictures and try to make it super interesting. And people were just like, this is sad and depressing. Yeah. Like our homework was like, watch the Precious movie, read the book, A Child Called It. It's all like, it's hard. Right. So the current opportunity might not be super dynamic and fun. Right. And so if things are fun, let's say, do you guys remember that maybe you had a 6th grade teacher or 5th grade teacher who used to do like Jeopardy games, right? Or something that made the class active and fun and this and that or whatever. Like even tossing a ball around to say something and then tossing it back is a little bit more of an opportunity, like an experience that's a little bit more dynamic. And again, personal motivation. If it's a highly preferred topic to you, then you're going to be like, heck yeah, I want to learn all that. Right. I told you guys earlier, I've been doing some research on sleep. I'm motivated. Right. I had an unsustainable situation I needed to fix. So I was motivated to fix it. Right. So even at this ripe old age, that you can still learn things based on your motivation and your opportunities and experience. But again, just remember, kids are still learning, but their brains, and even though let's say you have a smarty pants 4th grader, that brain's still not even growing as fast as it did its first year, 3, 5. It's crazy, right? Again, I want you to learn this term, executive function or executive processes. This is the part of the brain that shows up around between 7 and 10. You'll start to see kids who are organized and do things in actual. So like, for example, so when a child has autism or has an alternative way of thinking, like we talked about last chapter, different brains, different bodies. Children with autism typically have very low executive functioning. Very low executive functioning. So they look socially awkward because they don't understand perspective taking. They don't understand invisible rules of language, like cutting people off or things like that. So executive functioning also, it's all of this area in the prefrontal cortex. It's a skill building activity that kids maybe don't have. Now, some kids are naturally organized. Again, if you're a J, like if you're an ENFJ and you're like super J and you have to have everything like super organized, then that's not a problem for you. But again, if you're a P, you might not really care, right? But again, this executive process and this executive functioning can be taught even for people who don't have it. It's just a lot of rote learning. So it's getting into a pattern, it's organizing your folder, it's setting alarms. It's really, the kids with autism really need a lot of structure. I still have visual checklists on the wall. We have all kinds of different things because I know Peyton can do all these things like, oh, we need to pack our lunch and, take our shower and eat breakfast and pack our folder, but not in that order, but that's how he does it. Okay, well, my folder's kind of there. And then I need to pack my lunch and then I'll eat breakfast and then I'll hop in the shower. Actually, I probably should go backwards. Maybe hop in the shower, wake up a little bit more, right? And then come on out, eat your breakfast. And while you're doing that, pack your lunch and then let's get it by the door, right? So it's the same thing with studying, right? I know I'm going to need like 1 hour of studying 7 days in a row to make sure that I have that material organized by that time. To step back and say, okay, on this day, I'll need an hour, and that day I'll need an hour, and this day I'll need to step back and do that. That is a part of the brain right in here that also kids with ADHD don't have it. Just remember when we were being developed in utero, this is the last thing to be developed. And so we were like little baby shrimp and we grew like this. The last part was right? And our extremities, our fingers and our toes. Our brain, this can be built. This executive function can be built through a lot of repetition. So again, it's really interesting. So once you learn about executive function or we call it executive dysfunction. People who just can't do stuff in a row. Like, how about, it's raining outside. Let's grab your boots and your hat and your jacket. And they're putting their jacket on, but their undershirt's not even buttoned up or whatever. It's like, you have to do it in sequence. You have to put your undershirt, then your regular shirt, and then your jacket. If you start to put your jacket on before the rest of the stuff, it's not going to work. Same thing with, you have to put socks on before shoes, right? Sometimes they just don't get that. They'll just put the boots on and be like, oh, I forgot the socks. And you're like, yeah, you did. But that's just how their brain is. And so again, it looks illogical, but it is a skill that can be developed, improves with age and experience. I'm telling you, Peyton at his school with all the kids with autism, every single classroom has an executive functioning poster in it that says like, were you organized? Did you follow the rules? Do you need an extra 5 minutes to get organized? Like, right? So it's really interesting. Same with his folder. Oh my God. The folder or his locker. Right? And they're so hard on those kids and very rigid with them about being clean and being organized and being clean and being organized and being clean and being organized, because they figured if they can hammer it down for, let's see, he started there in the 7th grade, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Hammer it down for 6 years. Maybe by college, they'll be clean and organized and clean and organized and clean. And I'm telling you right now, at 13, he's just now saying, it's really satisfying when I fold my shirts right and they look really nice in my closet. It looks really good. I really like that. That's a good feeling. At 13, I was doing that stuff at 8, but that's just me. I have a different brain. So you're going to start to see this as kids develop, right? Even if they have this dysfunction or a part that's missing, they can still learn. It just takes a while. Oh, again, executive functioning has to do with, you know, how we do things and which order we do things. But I want to talk to you about metacognition. The term meta just means above or big, the next big picture, right? So we this term went around maybe like 5 years ago, meta this, meta that, meta, blah, blah, blah. But when we say metacognition, it's the bigger picture. It's thinking about our thinking. Right now, we're talking about our thinking, right? And when when in the discussion board, when I'm saying like, how did you remember this? Or even when I ask you here, what mnemonic devices to use or what flashcard, whatever, you're thinking about your thinking. Right? Even at the beginning of the semester, when I said, let's think about what type of outline you like to do. What order do you, trust me, I'm getting Roman numerals, I'm getting bullets, I'm getting color codes, I'm getting puffy paint, I'm getting mind mapping, I'm getting think about your thinking and put it into play, right? That concept, Peyton's 1st grade teacher introduced that to him. Metacognition. What? You guys are just learning it in college, because she was like, listen, these kids need to understand that their thinking is their own process. And we need to understand your thinking is different than my thinking, and that's okay. But if your thinking is like missing parts or it's underdeveloped, let's talk about that too. So she would even be like, you know, sometimes teachers would be like, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, right? She would go meta and they'd go cognition. Was she the teacher of the year? You bet your butt. Bet your butt. Best teacher I ever had. It's awesome. Organized, color coded, understood the different brains, dealt with these boys. Trust me on this one. It's awesome. Meta memory, same thing. We can remember about our memory, thinking about our memory. Oh, by the way, we can also meta communicate. Have you ever said to your spouse, partner, loved one, family member, best friend, you know, I notice every time I say something, you like try to top me or best me or like, or you cut me off? That's metacognition. Oh, you guys already do this stuff. You guys already do this stuff. Right? Isn't this wild? And that's the best part about being human. We can talk about our talking and talk about our thinking and think about our thinking and think about our memory and think about our talking. It's like, as far as I understand, animals can communicate, but I'm not sure if they can take a step back and look down and above. Right? Here's my meta communication for the morning. Whether or not I'm hyper caffeinated, I'm so excited. I talk so fast about this stuff because I love it. That's my process. Yeah, makes sense. You'll start to see this. You'll be able to think about this kid, maybe about 8 or 9 years old. You could say, hey, Josh, like, what are you doing? Oh, well, I'm writing some notes about, I'm making I'm counting all the shapes right here. Okay, well, who told you to write that down? Well, I just do it like that because it helps me remember. That's meta memory, metacognition. They can tell you why they're doing stuff because it helps them. Not all kids, but some kids. Yeah, it's cool. Listen, if your mind is not getting blown by something every single day, okay, lady, I'm seriously, I just totally found a life hack for my laptop. I just about lost my mind. So I'm teaching an art class on Saturday with a Mental Health Association project together. It's for at-risk teens and youth, and they have mentors. And by the way, I'll probably have a flyer for you guys if you guys ever want to be a mentor for a teen or youth, especially once you're in the 20 minutes. I'll wrap it up. So I'm teaching an art class, and I was like, how do I teach an art class? I've never taught an art class like this. And so now I tell you, this is my biggest mind blower for the minute. So take your compact mirror. I almost should put this on TikTok. And watch this. You can't really see it because I didn't get it started, but do this on your, it takes your camera and projects this from this to there. So now if I go like this and I show them a piece of art, or let's say I'm folding something or putting glitter glue on something, they can see it. Texted all of my teacher friends. I was like, if your mind is not blown by something every single day, you're not learning. Yeah, wild. Yeah. All right, cool. So about 11:40, any comments, questions, concerns, anything else? We went through a lot today, and then again, no school tomorrow. I will have a forum on Thursday if you guys want to talk about the rest